Every ending carries within it the seed of a beginning. One season closes, another dawns, different, uncertain, but woven with the same faithful hand. What has been prepared in the past now becomes a foundation for what lies ahead. Yahweh never leaves the story unfinished. He simply writes the next chapter. I'm Dr. Ray, and welcome to another powerful session of Hosea International Speaks. Genesis just doesn't end. It passes the torch. The story of a family closes, but the story of a nation begins. The last words of Genesis plant seeds that will grow into Exodus, and what was once a promise whispered to a patriot will soon thunder across Egypt with power. Let's journey through the blessings, the burials, the faith of the fathers, and step right into the silence that gives way to deliverance. Jacob, frail and near death, is carried into Joseph's presence. His eyesight is failing, but his spiritual vision is sharp. Joseph brings his two sons, born in Egypt, into their grandfather's tent, Ephraim and Manasseh. Now here is a striking moment. Jacob claims these two boys as his own, adopting them into the 12 tribes of Israel. What does this mean? It means Joseph will receive a double portion of inheritance through his sons. It means these boys of mixed heritage, half Egypt, half Hebrew, are grafted into the covenant family. This act testifies to Yahweh's plans to bring in those once outside and make them his own, as in Romans 11 so eloquently portrays. Then comes the blessing. Jacob, with deliberate intent, crosses his hands, placing his right hand on Ephraim, the younger, and his left on Manasseh, the older. Joseph tries to correct his father, but Jacob refuses. I know, my son, Manasseh will be great, but Ephraim will be greater. Here again, we see Yahweh's pattern. Abel over Cain, Isaac over Ishmael, Jacob over Esau, and now Ephraim over Manasseh. Human expectation is overturned and divine election rules. Jacob blesses them with words that will echo for generations. May they grow, listen to the words, may they grow into a multitude in the midst of the earth. From this moment, Ephraim and Manasseh stands as full tribes of Israel. Jacob then calls, in chapter 49, Jacob then calls his sons together, and what unfolds is not a sentimental farewell, it is a prophetic declaration. Each blessing contains truth, correction, and destiny. Listen to Reuben. Reuben, once the firstborn, now diminished because of dishonor, privilege lost through failure. Look at Simeon and Levi. Their violence disqualifies them from leadership, though Levi will later be redeemed as the priestly tribe. How about Judah? Number 4. Here the scarlet line shines brightest. Jacob proclaims, the scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor the ruler's staff from between his feet until Shiloh comes. This points forward to kingship, first David, but ultimately Messiah, the line of the tribe of Judah. How about Zebulun and Issachar? Their destiny tied to land and service. How about Issachar, who understood the timing and what Israel should do? How about Dan? Both judgment and warning of treachery, yet also a tool of service. Gad, Asher, Naphtali, words of provision and blessing for the tribe. And then Joseph, blessed with abundance, resilience, and favor. His life is a testimony of Yahweh's providence. And finally, Benjamin, fierce, a warrior tribe destined for valor. The scripture says that he would be like a ravenous wolf. Each word frames the identity of the tribes. But notice, Judah carries the promise of a coming king. The scarlet line of salvation narrows through him, pointing straight to Messiah. After blessing his sons, Jacob commands them, bury me with my fathers in the cave of Machpelah in Canaan. Then he breathes his last breath. What follows is extraordinary. Joseph orders physician to embalm his father, a process lasting 40 days. Then all Egypt mourns 70 days, a mourning period normally reserved for royalty. Think about that. The covenant bearer of Yahweh is honored in the greatest empire of the world. Joseph then leads a funeral march, procession to Canaan, Egyptian leaders, officials, elders, and military accompanying them, along with Jacob's sons. At the threshing floor of Atad, the mourning is so great that the Canaanites renamed the place the meadow of mourning for the Egyptian. Finally, Jacob is buried with Abraham and Isaac, an act of faith declaring that Canaan, not Egypt, is their true inheritance. When Jacob is gone, fear grips the brothers once again. Guilt from years ago resurfaces. What if Joseph now seeks revenge now that dad is gone? They send word, even offering themselves as servant. But Joseph responds with the words that define his life. Do not fear. Am I in the place of Yahweh? What you meant for evil, Elohim meant for good, to bring it about that many people should be kept alive. This is the pinnacle of Joseph's story. He recognizes Yahweh's sovereign hand. Human betrayal, slavery, false accusation, all of it was woven by Yahweh into salvation, not just for his family, but for nations. It is a reminder to us, even the darkest chapters of our lives may become the very instrument of Yahweh uses for his greater purposes. Now, chapter 50 closes that curtain now. Joseph lives to see his great-grandchildren, but before he dies, he makes one final request. When God visits you, look at this, he's talking about 400 years down the line, and brings you out of this land, carry my bones with you. He dies in Egypt, but his heart belongs to Canaan. Remember his 17 years of living there. This act of faith looks forward to the Exodus, to the promise of deliverance, and to the forming of a nation. His bones will not rest in Egypt. They will rest in the land of covenant. And also Genesis ends, and so it ends not with closure, but with expectation. The patriarchal era closes. The family becomes 12 tribes, planted in Egypt, preserved through famine, now awaiting Yahweh's hands. For 400 years, there will be silence. No visions, no promises spoken, but in that silence, Yahweh will be at work, multiplying this family into a nation. When the time comes, he will raise up a deliverer, split the sea and carry his people out with a mighty hand. Joseph dies, but not before leaving Israel with a command of hope. When God visits you, take my bones with you. His death closes the book, but his words keep the promise alive. Genesis doesn't end with despair, but with anticipation. The God of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Joseph will not leave his people in Egypt, and then silence. 400 years, there is no vision, no recorded word from heaven. But silence does not mean absence. In that silence, Yahweh's multiplying Jacob's family into a people. Exodus opens with a simple list. The sons of Israel, now tribes, and then the turning point. Joseph died and all his brothers and all that generation. But the people of Israel were fruitful and increased greatly. They multiplied and grew exceedingly strong, so that the land was filled with them. The family of 70 souls become a nation of nearly 3 million people. But with their growth comes a threat. A new king arises in Egypt who does not remember Joseph. Fear replaces favor. Oppression replaces welcome. Slavery replaces freedom. The stage is being set for deliverance. Out of affliction will come redemption. Out of bondage will come covenant. Out of silence will come a voice calling from a burning bush. I have surely seen the affliction of my people, and I have come down to deliver them. As Genesis closes and Exodus begins, we are reminded that Yahweh's plans do not end with a grave or with silence. His promises outlive generations. He is working even when unseen, even when the world seems dark, even when his people are under chains. What began as a family will rise as a nation. What started as a promise will thunder into deliverance. And the same God who was faithful then remains faithful now. Your story doesn't end when you meet Yahweh. It will continue through your sons and your daughters. Your story does not end there. What Yahweh begins, he will finish. Will you trust him? I want to thank you for joining me today. And if this message encourages you in any way, share it with your family, friends, and even your enemies. With someone who needs to be reminded that Yahweh always plans, always triumph. And if you like, don't forget to subscribe, like, and you can reach me anytime at Hosea International at yahoo.com or Hosea Speaks at Gmail. And if you wish to give, you can still do so by scanning one of the 2 QR codes on your screen. I'm Dr. Ray, and I'll see you next week on the continuing journey of a nation on Hosea International Speaks.